Gamecast, and we are going to do another podcast today, every Saturday at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to get into it. So, first and foremost, here, let me just mute this. You mute it. I'm going to get everything sorted out. What's this? Oh shit, this thing is tweeting. It finally tweets out. That's interesting. All right, perfect. So we're going to begin. I want to try to get all of this together in one sitting and discuss the stuff that we're going to talk about here. The first thing is going to be, you got to excuse my energy. My energy is kind of low, just kind of due to the fact of me being a little irritated. I'm not going to front to you. A lot of this internet rhetoric shit is irritating. I'm being a fanboy right now, so that's what's causing this to happen. My irritation. You know, two subjects today we're going to talk about. The first one being the power of hype. The second one is basically Gran Turismo 7 impressions. Try to make things a little more positive than they have been before. So, in terms of the hype, some of the things really, really bothered me about what I see online in general. You know, it saddens me to see so many lemmings, people that are willing to like jump off a fucking cliff because of like internet hype. You know, I've heard from a good amount of people that people have purchased. They've purchased Elden Ring, has never played a Souls game before. I wonder how many people will actually stick to that. You know what I mean? Actually, continue to play the game, especially if they haven't, messed with any of the Souls game before. Now, the funny thing is, I remember I used to work at a bank, right? And this is back in 2015 when Bloodborne came out, and I was so gun ho on this shit, man. I was like, man, look at this fucking game. This game is really cool. You got to play it, man. You got to play it. I've been telling everybody they should play it and shit. And one of my ex-supervisors actually played the game. And at first he was like, man, this is like really difficult, man. This is tough. This is some tough shit. And I was like, just stick with it. Just stick with it. You be fine. You be fine, man. Don't worry about it. What's going on, Hector? What's going on, man? Is that you in the picture? Let me try to make sure I could be heard properly. Lately everybody's been saying they can't hear me well. I can't find my fucking YouTube thing. Let me see if I can find it. But yeah, like the guy, my supervisor, he goes ahead and he's playing the game, and Bloodborne, that is, and he's like, I can't get past this one part. I can't get past this one part. And he just keeps saying it. And yes, the Souls community is really good for, kind of teaching people how to play their games, which is great. He ended up, even if I was going to tell him like, yo, like you need to do X, Y, and Z to get past it. You know what I'm saying? Even if I was explaining to him like, you need to do X, Y, and Z to do it. He ended up taking the game back. He couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. And it was unfortunate. Hold on for a minute. What's going on, Cyber Dragon? I wonder how loud this is. Yes. Some community is really good. Okay. It seems to be relatively okay. I could fuck with it. But yeah, he ended up quitting the game. He couldn't take it no more. He couldn't take it anymore. So he ended up quitting the game. And he sold the game. And I was like, man, you're a bitch. I was like, really? Did you really cancel the game because you couldn't beat it? He was like, man, I don't got time for that much stress. Granted, that was in 2000 and that was 7 years ago, 2015, but like, you know, and Bloodborne ended up selling like what 3 million lifetime. This is before PlayStation was known for, all of its all of the goodness that they have in terms of their scores and shit like that. Fast forward to today, which is kind of like disheartening, right? Um, I noticed, and I started realizing this when it came to why did I come in the kitchen for? What's the point? What the fuck did I come in the kitchen for? I noticed, right? Um, this started happening with Breath of the Wild, and this is probably going to sound like I'm hating on Breath of the Wild, but from my understanding of Breath of the Wild, right? Uh, the aspirin, that's what it was. People ended up playing Breath of the Wild, right? Or the Nintendo Switch got a bad rep for being released as a handheld and being weak as hell and being off the coattails of fucking what's that game called? I mean, the fucking Wii U. So off of the coattails of the Wii U, it just did terribly, reputation wise. And then they started to, they were talking about Zelda because Zelda was supposed to be released for the Wii U. They started talking about Zelda, and they ended up making it a cross-platform game, as you already know, if you're a gamer. And people kept saying, like, this is one of the best games I've ever played. It was already a situation where open world games had this stigma of, open world fatigue. People are tired of the checklists, blah, 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 blah. Even though there's checklists in every one of them, it's just that Breath of the Wild and Elden Ring don't tell you about the quest logs. You just do it. But I guess if you find it by yourself, it's a totally different feeling, which I'll get into. So the game got hyped by a whole bunch of people, a shit ton of journalists that wanted to capture, nostalgia and stuff like that. And at the time, I thought maybe it's just nostalgia that's causing this to happen. But Zelda single-handedly saved the Switch because of the reviews that it got. They were saying that on this handheld, it was one of the best games of all time. Of all time. Despite the fact that we had open worlds before and the way that they've done it, well, I can't take away what Zelda did. They had this chemistry system, these systems that interacted with each other that allowed for a freedom that wasn't really in any other open world game. But that's how it works well for Nintendo and their IP because it's like this fantasy magical thing. If you have a game that's like, Assassin's Creed or any other open world shit, Grand Theft Auto, you don't have the luxuries of having these particular systems where you can burn grass and use an updraft to, push up your hang glider and shit like that. Fine. They did something really impressive and it single-handedly did it, but I don't think it would have done as well as it has without these reviewers saying it was the best game of all time. The same thing happened with Red Dead Redemption. There are a lot of issues with Red Dead Redemption. A shit ton of issues, in fact, with Red Dead Redemption. Like a ton of them. And what happens is that we haven't had a cowboy game in a while. It was made by Rockstar. It looked beautiful, but there were control issues. There were storyline issues. There was a shit ton of issues that just dragged the game down. And nobody wanted to say anything about it because A, it was Rockstar. B, it was always good to jump on the hype train. And that leads us to where we are now with, this Elden Ring. I spent the time that this game came out to now trying to figure out why the game got hyped the way that it got hyped. And I think it's a combination of journalists they've been called out numerous times for not knowing what they were talking about. This is a good way for them to say that I'm a real gamer because I'm playing one of the hardest games of all time. That's one of the situations. The other situations is that it's associated with something that's the underdog, which would be the Souls games. Remember, Dark Souls 3 is the top game of From Software at the moment, or well, not now, but like back before Elden Ring. It sold 10 million units. That's what it ended up selling. Fine. This one looks to have sold 10 million units in its first month. Of course, it's cross-platform, and so was Dark Souls and stuff like that. But I think it was a combination of merit points for journalists that just don't do their job well. I think it was rooting for the underdog in the face of other games that are open world, the Assassin's Creed, the Horizons, and everything else, including Zelda. Even Nintendo still looked at to this day as an underdog because they're not. I mean, even though it sells as much as it does, it's specialized to a specific um, demographic, and it's looked towards, especially they've been in the game for. I mean, Sony is very flashy. You know what I mean? They do a lot of mainstream things, and Nintendo doesn't do a lot of mainstream things, not in your face. That was one of the things that kind of went on. And so you got shit like that. And then I'm looking here, and they're saying that it's the best game of all time. Now, rewind. What's going on, Philip? Now, rewind back to when I mentioned about Breath of the Wild and what it did that no other game did. Regardless of its context, they had a whole bunch of complicated physics systems that worked well with each other that allowed for different types of gameplay. That wasn't present in any open world game. Screw the glider, just the fucking chemistry system that they have going on there was different enough to make a change when it came to Breath of the Wild. But you have this game, this Souls game, and the 2 points, 3 points actually, is that it was helped be made by the guy that had something to do with Game of Thrones, which was already fucking big. In addition to that, they have the horse mechanic and the open world mechanic. What's going on, Adam? If you want to jump in, let me know, man. Put your hand up, and I'll bring you in there. If you want to talk about this shit. My gripe is that people literally got so hyped because of these review scores, and a lot of people think this is why Metacritic is so big for a lot of people that are in the fanboy wars. People definitely know that it affects people. Elden Ring, along with Breath of the Wild, which I know a lot of people that did not finish Breath of the Wild, they got caught up in the hype in the Switch as well, and they bought it, and that was the end of it. Same thing with the Switch. I mean, I'm sorry, the Wii, and then the other system that was hyped. Even PS4, I know a lot of people that bought the PS4 and they didn't really fuck with it either that much after they got it. They got the hype and then they got caught up in it, and that's fine. But how much can they retain after the people, the newbies, discover that it's not exactly what they think it is? That's number one. The other gripe that I have is that the hype literally overridden anything that was negative about the game to this day, which is unfortunate that people can't kind of speak their mind. Let me open this up, see if you did when I speak on this here. I usually. There we go. Black Immortal. There's a gentleman that worked on Horizon Zero Dawn's quest, the quest missions, and he
Game
ended up.
Pass.
Oh shit! Damn, scared the shit out of me.
Sorry about that, man.
What's going on, bro?
Hey, I know this seems like way out of the left field, but I've been sitting on the sideline for like a very long time, hearing people. I wouldn't say complaint, but they're pitting two games against each other. Well, rightfully so, but I believe when people do that, I think when people pit two games against each other, they have to. objectively speak about their pros and cons, pretty the basic stuff. But when you a consumer, or I want to say consumer, when a particular player is in is in favor for one game over another, it's hard to argue them down to say this game features is how you say is what terminology this feature set plays. I won't say play, but it's I wouldn't say better because better is so objective. Just say that the what the human eye can see, like the graphics, that, those two things that we can't see is plain as day. That both games are miles away apart and between that. But the bottom line is when people debate, they're coming from an angle from a biased standpoint, and it's hard to debate somebody if they have a strong stance for one other game. It's like talking to a wall almost because they you can't tell them that this game is better, and if they have a favorite for one of the games, it's like almost a pointless discussion or a discourse. So the thing is, I think you need a binary, or not like a non-biased view from players because you can't.
You would never get a. Not, I'm hearing like a lot of echoes, my dude.
I mean,
I'm not sure if I'm on like
I mean,
I'm not sure if I'm on like speaker or something.
yeah, I'm on speaker, but I'm saying you can't get a honest perspective from a person, and if they have a favorite for one of these games, it's like I say, it's just almost impossible. If you judge it on the merits of what it does the best, then that's something different. But if you telling them this game is better, they're gonna say it's not because they're gonna favor
Well,
that game.
no one's saying, and I'm sorry. Could you just mute your mic just really quickly? It's like a lot of background noise. Okay, cool. What I'm no one's saying is better. My argument is this, and I'll let you speak on this one. My argument is that I guess I was really long winded. What I was saying earlier, it's the hype that's causing the issue. Um, I feel like a lot of people. And I just spoke to my friend earlier, and he said that his friend's father, which is like in his 50s, bought Elden Ring based off of the fucking hype. You know what I'm saying? And that's a good thing. But when you have so much hype that's happening with the game, people are just blindly buying the fucking game, and just hype in general happens this way too. People are blindly buying it and not knowing exactly what it is. On the outside, it kind of looks like, this medieval thing, but they don't know of Miyazaki's ways and what he wants to do with his game. They'll find out. I did mention a story about Bloodborne and how, you know, I got some friends to buy the Bloodborne game and they took that shit right back. It was my first Souls game as well, and I decided to continue to play because I like the aesthetic. But that was me, and that was in 2015. When that ended up happening. I guess my situation is that I feel like one of the reasons why people ended up picking up this game that they probably wouldn't have is because of the hype. People keep saying that it's the best game of all time, which is causing the discourse that we're experiencing. You can't sit there and say it's the best game of all time when it may not be for everybody. All right, go on, Adam.
Yeah, um, your statement stands true. Is I think internally people are it's a very it's both games are awesome in my opinion, but it's if if one if a game have an edge over another, they're gonna constantly bring it up. Like just say if you have a debate with somebody, and if you point by point you win in favor, but they're gonna bring up the last resort is the Metacritic score. So they're gonna shut down the whole debate because they're gonna based their facts off a piece of score. It was like it's a conglomerate, or like it's like a it's called
Yeah, I
as a
think he's right. It's a
it's
culmination of scores.
yeah,
Or I know what word you're looking for.
it's a gathering of 40, 50 reviews, and they review pretty high, to say the least. And so you have one review, you have 40 review versus 110 reviews, and some reviews are all over the place. Some are nine, some tens, some six. And that's a so you know what I mean. It's kind of like almost unfair in a way, but
It
that's
is. It is. It absolutely is unfair. You know what I'm saying? And that's why you got the situation where the games are being compared in general, despite the fact that they're completely different. They're still being compared to fuel this fanboy fodder, which, all right, fine. You may not like the style of Horizon. And every time I go in my head and think about what kind of game Horizon is, and how they packaged the game versus Elden Ring. You know what I'm saying? Like there was like the senior quest designer for Horizon. He mentions this, and people say, I don't know. Like, does it come off salty? That's debatable. But he says that the fact that Elden Ring got a 97 and it has so many issues with its menu systems is beyond me. And yeah, he's gonna feel fucking pissed. The game, when you play Horizon, they put a lot of fucking work in this game. Way more work than anything technical that's in any Soulsborne game. I read a thing where they was like Miyazaki and friends was like, oh, we don't put our budget into the graphics, we put it in the gameplay. And I'm like, bitch, the gameplay hasn't changed for like 15 years. And that's not even cap. They've been making they've been making Souls types games since PlayStation 1. And I'm being generous here. Like, for instance, if you want to go to the one that made them popular, which is Demon Souls, that was released in 2009. That's basic. There you have it. It's 2020, almost 15 years. It's 2020 fucking two. And a lot of their systems are very familiar. So it's like, when did you invest? The engine is poorly optimized. And none of these reviews mentioned it. There's pop-up galore on every platform. No matter how strong your platform is, it's pop-up everywhere. And it didn't get any points docked from it. It just this was pure hype based off of, oh, I'm a journalist and I played the hardest game ever. And that's what it comes off as. When they say that a piece of grass popped up in Horizon, they took points off of that bit shit. When they said it was kind of glitchy before the day one patch, they took points from that shit. The same thing happened with Elden Ring. They took no points from that shit. If anything, they just completely ignored it, and that's the biggest problem. Now you got a whole bunch of fanboys that likes the Souls games that also wants to assert their dominance in a gaming space and say that I play hardcore games and everybody else plays casual. There's so many layers to this shit. You know what I'm saying? And it's unfortunate that people bust their ass to make a game like Horizon and they get shitted on, or people just don't even think about the other systems. They added accessibility options for the people that don't want to do it, and it's still not enough for these people. And it's like you have these small group of people that hype the fuck out this game, like to the high fucking heavens. And it made people buy the game, which translates into success. On a flip side, you have people complaining about bugs and glitches, which under normal circumstances is something that you should be wary of. But that would make people not want to buy the game until it's fixed. Versus you got Elden Ring that had these crazy fucking bugs and no one mentioned it.
a Gamecast. I think I see your problem. I believe that the uh, one of the games that was high production, high value is being overlooked by a lesser game with a lower budget in value, and people are praising it because of the the combat mechanics that have been used for a long for each series of the game, and I think what people like about that is they they love that mechanic. For some reason, they think that the fighting, the gameplay mechanic is like a true test of time, and that's why people are praising it because they love to have a stamina ball, just swing, swing, stop, pause. You get killed. You had to drink a potion.
Well,
That's how you,
let me just say this. They like the fact that the game pushes their patience. You know what I'm saying? It makes them be more careful. It makes them be more aware. It basically stimulates the mind. It does. It truly does. Where in a game that's full of fucking quest markers and everything else, you have to. I just had a crazy conversation with my friend earlier today about Elden Ring. And I had negatives and positive conversations just throughout since the game has been released, along with my own. And I mentioned, I'm like, you can't even fucking upgrade your character. Like, you don't know where to fucking go. Like, if I wanted to be a fucking sorcerer, where do I go to upgrade those pieces? And he mentioned something, two things. He mentions that the game, and I kind of suspected this, but it was nice to hear from a real Souls fan of how he felt about the situation. He says the game's about adventure. You got to find it. It's like basically, if I were to just pack up a few bits of clothes, right? And just leave, right? Nibs, man, I would love to hear your intake with this, man. I would love to hear this shit, man. I'm gonna invite you, so hopefully you'll speak on there. Um, oh man, I would love to hear your input on this. Um, and if you can't, it's okay. I'm not. There's no pressure here. But it's like if I put a backpack on, right, and I go set and I just have a couple items, maybe like a sandwich or the whatever the hell it is, right? And I go and I want to travel from the East Coast to the West Coast. It's going to be a difficult time for me. You know what I mean? And I'm going to have to use my context clues. I'm going to have to use, looking at what do you call it? Landmarks and everything that I need to at least figure out how do I get to the West. And he mentions this, and I'm like, you know what? That's kind of badass. But there is a logic to to Elden Ring in this particular case. A couple of days ago, I went into an area which there was these people with these picks, like a hammer and a sharp end on the other side, and they were fucking my shit up. And eventually, I overpowered them, and they gave me a pick, which I am the strength class. So I was like, oh shit, that's what I mean. Now I got this, and it was like now visually, if I wanted a weapon, I just have to kind of defeat the enemy, and the probability for me getting the weapon will be there. So I'm not mad at the game and its ratings. What I am upset with is how a small group of people can hype something to the heavens and it just fucks up the whole game. What do you got to say about this, Nips?
Sorry, dude. My wife is next to me on the sofa sleeping, so I'm trying to chill. But I will interject. You guys carry on. I'll interject in a sec.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. So I guess now I can continue. So like my situation is this, right? Like people are going to draw the line between Horizon Forbidden West and they're going to draw and Horizon and Elden Ring. And not, those games do not functionally. They are literally juxtaposed to each other. They're completely different games. You know what I mean? Their philosophies are completely opposite of each other. And that doesn't make one or the other bad. That's the logical explanation when it comes to this shit. That's logical. But because of the Metacritic and them not mentioning the shit that happens, like the poor performance, the glitches, and a lot of the other issues that come along with Elden Ring, like these reviewers know that their shit is on the line when it comes to how credible they are, and they like this shit. They like that. They want to prove to the gaming community that they played a hard game, and they want to be a part of something, a community. So they said whatever they said because it goes against the grain, and they got the review copies beforehand, and it is detrimental to other people, other games in general, because you're not telling the whole truth. And then because of that, people are hyping this game up to the heavens. I have it. I love it. especially the revelation that my friend gave me about it being a straight ass. You're just gonna have to find shit. You're gonna have to look, open your eyes and look. If you see something that looks magical, you want a magic build, that's the direction you want to go to. If you see somebody have big ass heavy weapons, it's probably a strength build situation. You need to go there. That's your context clues. And that's how I feel about it. Adam, what you got to say? Adam, you there?
Yeah, I really don't have not much to add to it. You making clear and concise points. I just think that you gotta understand, bro, the human nature of people. They follow the trend. If something is hot and if it's damn near scoring perfect scores, people want a piece of the action. That's part of sometimes even in real life, people do that crazy thing. They follow a team that's hot. As soon as the team fall off, they have nothing else to do with it. Now imagine if I'm just saying how just imagine this game not scoring so well. It'll be a different story. I think people would be more pissed about it that it didn't score high. So I think you win some, you lose some. That's just the way it is.
There's something ingrained into human nature, right? When it comes to underdogs, that the people like to see underdogs win, and the people that are at the top, they want to knock them down. You know what I'm saying? So it's completely illogical, but that's what happens. You know what I mean? And this goes to show this is the quintessential example of things like this where you have these titans and one is going to be adversely affected than the other. But I could see why the Metacritic is so important because again, you may have a favorite and you no, I can't like again, if we want to play the Metacritic game, I can't fucking say Horizon is one of the best games I ever played because somebody's gonna bring that shit up and like, who got an 87 on Metacritic? It doesn't do anything new. My game is revolutionary, and guess what? My game actually is one of the best games of all times, and there's nothing wrong with it. And you don't need graphics. It's just the gameplay is so strong. I'm sorry that the gameplay isn't strong in Horizon, and it's like you talk like that shit. You know what I'm saying? I do think, honestly, that Horizon Forbidden West is one of the best games I've ever played. That's a strong statement. It stands as high as fucking Shadow of the Colossus to me. It stands as high as the Jack and Dexter series. It stands as high as the older Tomb Raider games. That's how I feel about that shit.
I actually do think the gameplay is so competent in Horizon Forbidden West. There's so much complexity and diversity to it. It's just, I think, based on what difficulty people play and how they play it.
So
It's
true.
one of those, yeah, it's one of those games where like you have such a diverse arsenal and so many methods to play: stealth, traps, trip cast, rope cast, swinging, this, that. You can even use a glider in the middle of combat if you want to. There's so much you can do. You can snake about, you can leave tripwire, you can go in ham, you could use tear blast arrows, you can use precision arrows on weak points. There's so much you can do, but I think a lot of people, they play the Horizons games in a quite derivative and boring way, and then they end up complaining that it's not. But I personally think the gameplay is phenomenal. The AI of the machines is, it's up there with, some of the best AI out there of enemy
Yeah, like
design and
first
stuff.
person shooter type AI.
Exactly.
Like it's
That's
weird because you don't get that in a third person game. Like especially it's something like an RPG.
mm,
RPGs are usually rock paper scissors situations. So like
exactly,
it'll do one thing. This one is like emergent and immediate. It's rock
exactly.
paper scissors immediately.
Exactly. And the other thing I was going to say, like, if we compare it to like a lot of other open world games outside of Elden Ring, right? Whether it's your Skyrims or your um Fallouts or your Witcher 3s or whatever, I would say these games, in terms of animations and combat refinement, is quite poor, actually. They're a bit janky, they're a bit cumbersome and slow, and they feel a bit bloated or weighty. And, in like first person, Skyrim and stuff, you swing your sword about, it looks comical almost. whereas you got something like Forbidden West, which is very like precise and rapid, and the way she rolls and dodges and all her move sets is very quick and nimble. And I think even to that point, like it's just a very, very polished combat and gameplay system. And I think it probably doesn't get enough credit for it. It's almost like because it has so much narrative emphasis and such high production values, people concentrate and focus too. Oh, it's just one of those cinematic games, and they're a bit reductive.
I said this in my old in my previous space that it's like a beautiful 10 out of 10 model that has like 6
Exactly, exactly.
PhDs, and people are just like, I know this bitch is smart, but I question it because she can't have it all. There's no way she can have that all.
Yeah,
And I feel
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I get you. I mean, I don't want to offend any blonde people in here, but there's a lot of like attractive blonde women, and people have that judgment of them. But it's like some are almost misjudging, not misjudging, but their
Yeah,
critique
you're
of
right.
her.
It's
Yeah,
misjudging. It is.
yeah, and it's a weird one. But I was gonna say with the whole Elden Ring Metacritic thing, I think part of it, it's just, I mean, obviously, journalists, their job is to, review and play games. So they're basically playing pretty much every game that comes out. And I think all it is it's more like a novelty thing because let's call it quest marker design, right? So Forbidden West is a marker design type open world game in the, sort of like Assassin's Creed and
Which it
Watch
plays nothing
Dogs and
like, by the way.
Witcher and yeah, I know it plays nothing like it, but as in
But it has the quest marker thing. No, I
it
just
has the
wanted to
quest
put that
markers,
out
yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. So the actual gameplay and combat systems are completely different, but the structure of the world and how you progress through it is, quest markers and things like that. And I think what it is there is so few free form open world design games. Basically, pretty much just Breath of the Wild and now Elden Ring. And I think that kind of novel aspect of that, and because if you're playing because me and you, we probably are very selective in what we play. So,
Yes.
we're playing the good stuff or whatever particularly piques our interest. Whereas journalists, they, whether they're interested in it or not, they basically have to review and review it for their job. So they're playing a lot of these types of games, which are kind of, synonymous in the industry. So when something comes along that's so different, I think it probably does have a bit of an extra draw to them because like they probably paid like 12, quest marker type design games in the last, I don't know, year or two. And then Elden Ring comes along and it's the only one of its kind in a long time. So I think that kind of sense of progression and structure allows them to look at it in a slightly more positive way than these other types of games, even if there are glaring flaws.
That's what I want to ask you. So, Nib, do you think that it deserved a 97? Because I know you have the game, correct?
Yeah. So I couldn't say because I've only barely played it. So I
So
think I'll put like
how come these reviewers barely played? What's going on, Game of Night? How come these reviewers barely played the game? They haven't completed the map and they could give it a 97 or say that it's one of the best games of all time. What's you get paid for
so
this
I would
shit?
say like because I kind of weirdly enough I would say that you do if you're going to give a really positive review, you should be completing the game that you're playing because if it's a really negative, it's a bit different. And what I mean by that is, say you play something and it's so dull and boring to you, you shouldn't really have to force yourself to play it. You can just write in the review, I didn't finish it because I didn't find it entertaining. But if you're going to do the
Really?
opposite, yeah, because your review can just be, it was so boring for the 10 or 15 hours I played it, I didn't feel compelled to review it. Now, obviously, someone finished the game. Obviously, someone reading that review, they're entitled to not give it much credibility because they might want to only hear a review from someone who's finished the game. But at the same time, if you're really hating a game that much, you know, fine, I understand you didn't play the rest of it. But if you're going to give a really positive review, that's different. I think you really need to um, give you give the whole thing a go, because at the end of the day, you could get towards the end and the last act could be really, really terrible.
That's happened
All the
before too.
all the story like flops, and
Can I say this
like
really
that.
quickly? Right,
Hmm.
Kana started off strong,
Mhm.
and it didn't fall off a cliff, but it was just like,
Yeah, I know
I
what you
was
mean.
like, I don't got time for this. And sometimes that happens. Conversely, the same thing could happen in the opposite
True,
way, like
true,
Days
but
Gone, and this game. This game had a long introduction,
mm,
and because of, and you mentioned a difficulty, and the same thing happened with the previous Horizon. Whereas you play the shit on normal, a lot of the other systems don't really come into play because you
they
can just
don't.
shoot something to the death with just a regular
It's
arrow.
basically a different game, honestly.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, it really is almost a different game. Because you're not challenged to be creative in the combat and stuff, and your tools, you're not running out of ammo and things like that. So having to switch it up, it's really quite a different game. Even in terms of scavenging, like when you're playing on hard difficulties or the hardest, while you're
The
fighting,
economy is straining, because it doesn't.
exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you're literally scavenging in real time and crafting in real time while you're fighting these massive machines. It's like a mini puzzle in itself, you know? Um,
Uh,
yeah,
You've beaten Horizon, correct?
yeah, Horizon, yeah.
Like, okay, so at the end of the game, which I won't spoil,
Mhm.
I was running. They give you just enough
Mm,
to overcome that
mm.
objective. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
Right
yeah,
before the last.
yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, which was really fucking cool, by the way,
Mm,
it was something unlike anything that game had. That
mm.
last little section and stuff, it was just really cool. Like, I've never openly said wow since Shadow of the Colossus, honestly. When it comes to like a last thing, I was like a kid again, and the part that I'm talking about with the I ain't gonna say it, but like the two opposing systems going on in
Mm,
the field,
mm, mm,
and you see like the bigger ones and then the other little ones, and they're going
mm.
at it. I was like, holy shit, you
Yeah,
know. And it
yeah,
just made me. It was like, there's no fucking way. Like, I've never kind of seen that in an interactive medium. But like, you're right. I think that these reviewers played it on probably normal,
mhm.
got through the story, just beeline the whole story, which is a shame because you could do that in Elden Ring and just follow the grace all the way to the end of the fucking game and be
Yeah.
done with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's. Did you see the guy, the quest marker or the quest guy for Horizon? He mentions that Elden Ring got a 97. He's like, with that type of UI, and he's like, man, my life is a lie. Then,
Mm,
I mean, I
mm.
put all this work in here, and all of it was dashed because of hype. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, all the work that they put in there. And let me just say this, okay? So your general consensus, you have Elden Ring, and you weren't feeling it. Is that what the general consensus
No,
is?
no, I'm really enjoying it, but
Okay.
I'm quite a big Soulsborne fan.
Okay, cool.
So
So
yeah,
my
but
situation with the Souls games, I will say this, and I'll let you kind of double back or go, I guess, combat what I'm saying. The core mechanics of a Soulsborne game, I love it. I love it. The problem that I have that I feel like it needed to be addressed, and it needed points taken away, is that the game's presentation minus the art is poor. It doesn't run well. You know, other like Sony games will get destroyed if it came out the gate like that because there's an expectation with their games, and that's a whole other topic. But there's an expectation.
yeah, I
Um,
mean that
and then
is the key word. Yeah.
right, and then they used a lot of assets for the previous games, a lot of them. Like, I would say like something around like 70% of the animations and shit like that are basically reused. Um, like bit for bit, like it's the same thing. And it's like I feel like them using it and then the performance issues and then it's not pushing anything graphically at all should have all taken into account for the score. It's like when they mentioned about popping, right? They didn't say anything about Elden Ring, especially what's his name, Skill Up. He says that I didn't notice it. But then he mentions like a leaf that popped up, and he's like, "Well, it's a lot of technical issues." What?
I think it kind of goes back to the thing you're saying about, like the model, the person with the really attractive appearance. Like they're like hyper focused on the aesthetic and production values because something dared to push the boundaries in that area. So then
Mm-hmm.
they're a lot more picky with every aspect of that. Whereas you got this other game that is kind of like, visuals, okay, but it's all about the art. So then people are like, okay, visuals, whatever. Like we're not expecting too much out of it. So it's a strange one, but I do agree that there needs to be a bit more consistency, and really, really believe the games that push the boundaries of visuals and not just art, but the production values and animation and all of these things, they need to be given more credit for that. And I don't think it's like shallow to appreciate visual design, sound design, and art design. I think, thousands, hundreds of people put thousands of hours into perfecting that shit and mastering that and really polishing it. So why can't we give it credit? Why shouldn't we? And I think like
Right.
the
Right.
most and I think the most egregious example for me is not even between Elden Ring and Horizon. I think for me, and I still really enjoyed the game, but I'm kind of mind blown that they reviewed so similar, is the Halo Infinite, honestly.
Oh shit, you're right.
Yeah, because like, I enjoyed the game. I thought the grapple was cool, the open world was pretty cool, but it's such a derivatively designed open world. Like, you know, go 5 minutes here, there's another bunch of squad mates to free. Go 5 minutes here, there's another bunch of squad mates to free. Here, shoot the canisters in this base. Move over, shoot the canisters, these vent things in the next base. It's basically the same outside of the main story. Every side objective is basically the same. Like I always said, like when you play that game, whatever you do in the first 3 hours that you come into the open world, it's pretty much what you do the rest of the 10, 15. But more to that, like it's one biome. The visuals aren't good. The trees are all the same. Like the aesthetic, the shaders, the building structure. A lot of it is reused in the open world. And then you've got a game like Horizon Forbidden West, where I remember in Plainsong, when I first arrived in Plainsong, it's kind of like this tribes people that they're into agriculture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everything about their town is like a city and a town built in the trees, and because they do farming and stuff, all their clothes is made out of thatch, bamboo, weave, and it's like holy shit! Like people
The
spent,
satellite too, man. Like
yeah, but
just to be able to take something and I mean, my jaw fell off my face when I seen that. That was like,
look,
there's no
dude,
fucking way.
I spent 1 hour looking at people's outfits and architecture. 1 hour. I was just like, how did they put this much? Even like, say a structure is held up right on a bridge and it's held up high. They actually modeled the thatch wrapping around each individual piece of bamboo, and I was like, and people played this game and were like, yeah, it looks good. Like really, like
Because it looks so natural. I'm gonna let UI talk as well. I want to say this about uh, that area, right?
hmm,
Did you notice that the land gods, their
hmm,
names sound kind of odd?
hmm,
Well, here's another piece of lore for this game. There's old ones, people from 1,000 years ago. They found music from 1,000 years ago, right? When they were released from their cradle facilities, and
right.
they found the do re mi fa sol la ti. They found that, and that's
Oh,
uh,
sick. Right.
like
So it's like
what?
kind of an homage to that.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like little shit
Yeah.
like that. It's like, get the fuck out of here. Like, but
Yeah.
you could just easily high step over it.
So
Yeah,
I'll just summarize this one thing. I was just going to say,
sure.
basically, I almost feel like journalists, they have a bit of a weird thing where they're not recognizing or appreciating diversity in production values and art design necessarily, or there's an inconsistency there, because when you can get the same score and the same feedback doing one biome where everything is repetitious, but then another game can have more diversity in a single biome than your entire game, and it has like 12 biomes, there's a problem there. Like, what's going on? Like, are we saying diversity doesn't matter anymore, or it does for one game and it doesn't for another? Like, there is, because I'm usually quite pro Metacritic and pro critics, because I've been in this field, and I've helped out with journalists. I've written some reviews, and so I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. But I do think, yeah, there's a bit of an inconsistency, and I think audiences maybe deserve clearer parameters and explanations for why what it's okay for one game and not the other, etc. But anyway, I'll let you go and wrecking.
Now I want to say this too, by the way, in terms of Horizon, some of the side quests is like completely out. It's outrageous. Some of the side quests. Reckon, I'm gonna let you go. What's his name? Yo, Tony, yo. Let me invite you again because I know you wanted to speak on this. Let me just invite you again as well. Now let Reckon go. I want to
All right.
say,
So I guess,
yeah.
sorry. The main thing I wanted to say is from a, how to say, evaluation perspective, one product is being, released is almost like a master's level thesis, or almost in terms of Horizon Forbidden West, a PhD level, how to say, product that is being released. The other one is a bachelor's degree, maybe a high school degree. But when you assess, when you do an exam, and when the results come in, if you see it from like a high angle, the results is going to be out of 100%, right? So I guess what I mean is, one product at the end of the day is a high school thesis, or maybe a bachelor's degree thesis. Other one is a PhD level. And the problem with Metacritic is every single one of them is being evaluated on the same scoring system. That is causing massive issues at the moment in terms of, and like, I have spoken to a few developers in the background, and they are saying like, how, what, it's like, we've done all of this, and a game that has, bare minimum can end up receiving a same evaluation. That is not at the moment fair. The other thing that is causing major issues is, I've noticed that there was some outlets are still using the 5-star system, and if you Metacritic needs to implement a better conversion system, because a lot of few of the few outlets gave Horizon Forbidden West 4 out of 5. That's all they can give, because of course the game cannot be 5 stars, because like they say, it is not perfect. But once you end up giving 4 stars out of 5, you end up with 80% as a result of it. That causes massive issues. And the other thing I wanted to say in terms of why Elden Ring reviewed so high is they've managed to construct a review system where only the fans, or only the people who are capable to, how to say it, play it during a review process, are the fans, and the fans are going to, of course, rate it highly. Like, I wouldn't give myself Horizon Forbidden West to rate, because I would just rate it perfect. I wouldn't be able to be objective. And the reason that we have professional reviewers is we ask them to get as closest to objectivity as possible. And currently, they've just forgotten that, and they say, "Oh, this is my opinion." I was like, no, wait. We ask you to be professionals, not just
Fans.
subjective fans. Yeah.
I'm gonna say this too. I want to put out, right, that I really like Souls games. What I would have loved in this particular game, my friend kind of allowed me to see things a little differently when it comes to like upgrading and stuff like that in the game. You have to use your eyes. You have to, and read the items. That's how Miyazaki created it. But the reusing of the animations and the technical issues, like you need another engine or something. Like you
Facts.
can't.
Like, I know, obviously, gameplay is king, right? But you have to admit, I don't know if anyone here plays Demon Soul Remake, right? So that shit looks way better graphically in terms of fidelity, shaders, textures, all of that stuff. Not art. I'm not talking about art direction. I'm talking about actual graphical fidelity. It looks much stronger than Sekiro. You know, I know it's not open world and stuff, and that's fine. You know, not everyone's going to have that level of production. But yeah, I was just going to say one other thing because I was talking about this conversation with Gladiator, right? And it's like we were trying to figure out like, well, why is there this kind of inconsistency? What could possibly compel it? And you know, one of the things like I was saying to him, like possibly what it could have been with Halo Infinite is, like you said, you used the word earlier. It's all about expectation, right? I think the expectation was very high with Horizon Forbidden West, and there was a lot of marketing behind it, a lot of gameplay. And I think expectation with Halo, the campaign, it was actually the opposite. It was quite low. They barely
It's
showed
so
it off.
unfortunate.
Yeah,
It's so
the last
unfortunate.
time they showed it a year before, it was, you know, it was completely mocked. They barely showed it after that tiny little snippet of gameplay, and then it's like, so Halo 5 wasn't, I know was fairly critically well received, but I think most people were disappointed with the campaign. So maybe the expectations weren't that low. And I think with Halo Infinite, because they went to open world design from linear and they added the grapple hook, I think that kind of pulled the wool over a lot of people's eyes and made them forgive a lot of the other shortcomings that other open world games don't get away with. Let's be honest, they don't. Like,
No.
if you just had one biome and you had the same mission and objective structure throughout the entire thing, any other game, you know, well, most other games would have got docked for that. They would have got slated.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
Hardcore.
So yes, maybe it's an expectations thing. Like,
It,
I don't know.
it's kind of like a kid, right? Let's say you have two kids, right? One kid, one, you know, is 16, 17 years old, and they've been doing art for, I don't know, like 6, 7 years, right? And you have like another kid years later where this kid is like 5 years old, right? And they both give you a drawing. You know, you have the kid like, hey, look what I did in art, and they're about to they're about to, you know, give me a scholarship for whatever, right? And you have your little 5 year old kid. It's like, hey, daddy, look what I did. It's like some shitty art, you know, some shitty finger paints, and it's like the effort for your skill level is commendable. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
gonna.
I can actually give you a personal example, but and this isn't me trying to throw my sister under the bus. Like, God bless her, she's way better than me and more capable and knowledgeable in many things, but she's not very studious. Let's put it that way, right? So it's like for me, A or nothing. Otherwise, you get your ass beat. You know, my sister, she comes with a C, and they'll be like, "Well done, you did really well." You know, and it's just expectations were just different. So you know, what they wanted out of us was different as well. You know, and you know, and that's fine with children, but I don't think it should be like that in gaming. I think there has to
But
be,
it is
because
though.
because you're reviewing products that people consume, right? And it's not, you know, I think there needs to be more of a level of consistency. But we're only human. Reviewers are only human, so you know.
But if they having spaces like this and calling them out really helps the situation, because ultimately, like, it's a problem. Just like what Reckon said, he literally hit the nail on the head when he said, you know, it's his examples. This is a real problem and it needs to be addressed. I get that you were hyped. One of the issues is a lot of fans reviewed it and they liked the game, and you know, indiscriminately, all of its problems and stuff like that. Like, a lot of these people hid the fact that the game performed worse or performed badly, and that's all right. That's not a problem. But I'll say this, and I'm going to. I want to ask you about Gran Turismo as well. One of the things I want to say about Elden Ring is that when my friend opened my eyes to saying, just take this as an adventure game with peril. You know, you can't just waltz up in this world and think that, you know, you got to be careful. It's a lot of risks, and you got to use your eyes and understand like the architecture of things and read your items, stuff like that. When you look at it in that way, I can see the lore. It's the best game of all time. This, you can't say that for anything. You know what I'm saying? Because people may not like a whole bunch of things. But I will say this though, because I know Sony gets a lot of shit when it comes to their games. There's like their expectation is through the fucking roof for every game that they release. And I've been noticing over time that their games, despite the fact that the quality has risen, their scores are dropping. And I've been just kind of curious with that. Fine. Eventually quality prevails because remember with the PS3, people really didn't like that system. And Sony just continuously pumped out really high quality games to the point where they got noticed. Horizon,
So
I was going to say this real quick. Horizon eventually, people are going to go back to Horizon and be like, "Yo, I didn't know it was like that." Especially playing on like a harder difficulty or playing it again without the hype that's clouding everyone's judgment. I think they're going to go back to this game. Maybe go on sale, or maybe if Sony releases a multiplayer because the gameplay mechanics are so competent, you could translate all of this shit into some sort of co-op. So I think that's what's going to happen. It's probably going to reinvigorate the gameplay or
so
the interest of the game.
yeah, I mean, you said a really interesting point there. You said the quality of their games are going up, but the scores are going down. And I 1000% agree with you. But I also think part of that is because Sony are kind of like, this is their wheelhouse now, right? Cinematic games.
Mm-hmm.
And because there's more cinematic games available, not just from Sony, but from third parties and stuff as well. Whether it's Assassin's Creed or Legions or whatever, the new monster game that Gods and Hunters or whatever, I don't know, I can't remember, Ubisoft made. And there's a lot of these kind of games that try and do stories and stuff well. They don't necessarily do them as well as Sony, and I think there's a bit of, not familiarity, but it's like, okay, Sony, we know you do this well. So now a lot of journalists, like, it's almost like they want more or they want
They're
different.
jaded. I think they're jaded.
Yeah, because they've done a lot of these now, but I don't think Sony's going to stop doing them. But yeah, it's a weird one. It's a weird one. I don't think Forbidden West is without its flaws.
It has its flaws for sure.
It has its flaws, yeah. I mean, for me, like, I actually do think there's too much in the open world going on and too many icons and shit. But in all honesty, I had the same problem with Forza Horizon 5 as well, which I don't think was really much was brought up as much in terms of a negative, but it was brought up almost in every review for Forbidden West. Like the too many quest markers and things like that. But yeah, and I really do think there's like sometimes too much populating the map. And then the second one would be, I don't think the climbing mechanics are fully refined, and they're not as
No,
refined even as the original game.
nor
You know,
nor is the melee in the game. Like I feel like that she needs a block and she needs a lock on for
mm,
sure.
yeah,
So
no, I get you, yeah,
you know, so there's things that they could fix, but like again, every game has a particular issue. And
of
again,
course, yeah,
the more criticism they receive, it's disheartening that they didn't look at the things that it did well, the
mm,
journalists. But this does nothing but help them out. The fact that this has exponentially like leapfrogged the first game,
mm,
it's the other thing too is the side they need to make more compelling side quests. They are long and they are really good ones, but there's a lot of dialogue that's just unnecessary to me. And it's not that I don't
yeah,
like reading or listening to it, but
too much exposition,
it's
man.
too it's too much that I don't care about. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I love the old one story, but for the
see,
current events, not a fan of it. They did have one story in Plain Song, right? Which I
mm,
love this. This was beautiful. Beautiful, 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 right? It was so good. She received almost like a distress call from one of the guys from Plain Song, and he kept saying that there's somebody that's attacking his people, like that grew his little clan. That's what he was saying, and she finally put one and one together. They don't know what it's called because they lost so much information because of the collapse of society. But the guy, he was suffering from dementia, and he kept saying like, "How did I get here?" You know what I'm saying? And I was like, oh shit, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like that was pretty
it
powerful,
was
not
quite
because of the
deep.
context. It was deep.
Yeah,
And it was sad because and then you know how empathetic
yeah,
Aloy is. She's like, oh,
mm,
I know he's sick in the head. Something's wrong with him.
yeah.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
think Horizon needs more of those kind of emotional side
Yes,
quests.
yes, yes. And I think that's why people can't relate to Aloy either, because she don't have that many flaws as well. And we
Exactly,
see we've
exactly.
seen a lot of little flaws, like Silence mentioned it. she's too like I wish they would have leaned into it. She's too fucking emotional.
Hmm.
And he's like, I can't tell you things because you're too emotional. You know what I'm saying? They need to lean into it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But it's like she's looked at as the hero and stuff like that. Also, they did lean into she don't want to get too close to people because she's trying to she's trying her best
Yeah.
to fill the shoes of someone else, you know?
I'll be honest, like just something to, because because everyone in the world like hypes up Aloy, right? Like, oh, the redhead, like hero. But it would have been nice if some people like hated her, or like, or she makes mistakes that end up killing loads of people, and she has to, just a bit more depth, so she's kind of pushed more. And we do see her flaws and her more of her issues, and people seemingly also, like a bit of the Spider-Man thing with, a lot of the people hate Spider-Man even though he's a hero. Some of that would have been cool, but yeah, I was
It
just
would
gonna
have
say,
been.
like, I do think like Forbidden West, we were talking about some of the exposition and some of the quests aren't as good as the others. It's almost like some, I feel like, and I wouldn't really dock it many points for this because it's just extra content at the end of the day, but it's almost like if they stripped a little bit from it, if they almost like editing, right? If they took a bit of those less interesting quests out, some of that less interesting exposition
Yes.
and discussion out, then this is basically a 10, right? This is a masterpiece. Like all it is it's almost like Guerrilla Games put so much in there that the pacing isn't quite there. And I know loads of people will still give it a 10 because if you like that kind of content, this game, you could spend fucking forever in it, I think I have, 70 hours or something, and there's still so much more to do. But yeah, I think like with a bit of editing and just like cutting some content out weirdly, not putting it in, this would have been a
They
way
can
more. It's like
focus
that
on,
album.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like that music album that has a few filler songs that keep it from, perfection. Whereas if they just take it a few filler songs out, it's much more cohesive overall. It's kind of a bit like that.
Like I don't mind the extra missions and stuff like that, but like the conversations and exposition, and they could have taken that because one of the you remember the beginning mission where you had to find out what the fuck was going on with the bristlebacks while we're in the dawn, and it
Yeah,
was
I
just
did find out. Yeah,
layers. It was just layers on layers on layers on. I was like, damn, this really goes deep. They
yeah,
needed more of that. Like if they had less missions but more of longer side quests that felt like mini games.
yeah, interconnected.
You know what I'm saying? That was
Yeah,
fucking awesome. I was like, and then she was just like, "Oh, I don't have enough. I gotta come back to this because it's, you know what I mean." And then she'll let you know when it's time to kind of come back to a mission like that because one of the
yeah.
other side quests touches upon what she's doing there. Those missions are great and some of the best in the fucking genre altogether. And then it's I mean, I know I've been speaking about this for a few weeks, but like again, they do so much right. You know what I mean? It's like I would give Horizon a 91. That's what I would give it. You know what I'm saying?
So I'm leaning towards a 9.5 at the moment, but it could drop to a 9. I don't think I'd go higher than a 9.5, but if it, right now I'm at a 9.5. And I think it's probably going to stay there. And I've got very little left to do. I'm like right at the end of the game. All I'm doing is before I do the final mission, I'm just basically maxing out all my legendary gear. I'll probably be too OP, but fuck it, man. I want to be like,
Especially with the shit that they throw at you. It's like, what the fuck? I saw one of my friends fight that fucking what is this that snapping turtle thing? Oh man, like the
yeah,
AI and everything was just so good. But I want to say this too. You know why people probably feel like the combat isn't as rewarding other than putting it on normal? You get parts and you go to the merchants, you know what I'm saying, to get these particular weapons. And that's how they wanted the game to be. But when you play like a Soulsborne game, when you do a boss, you will get the weapon. So you get rewarded for the misery that you were been put through. Not a mod, but you get an actual weapon. And I feel like people are misinterpreting those mods as not being that much and that they will really rather get something tangible that they can use that's different from the other things. It's just a lot of things too. Like I would have loved for Aloy to have different weapons. other than what I'm saying, her spear. But like I said, they needed a block and they needed a lock on feature, and that it would have been mint. Now, I will say this before I go into the Gran Turismo thing, because I definitely want to hear your thoughts on that one. Um, honestly, um, man, I love this game to death, man. I'll say that. It's beautiful. It plays well. I've actually played the game again, so like I beat the game, right? I tried to rush to beat the game so I can get the storyline and not be spoiled. So now that I've done that and that's off my back, I've literally started a new game because I beat it on very hard anyway. But I started a new game, and now I have a better sense of how the systems work, and it just feels so much better. It feels more rewarding to understand those things. I went through the game kind of like on three wheels essentially, and I beat it, kind of. But now I know what to do with all the systems that they have in there. Even the Jar Raptor dude that covers Horizon, he didn't know. He was like, "Oh, the machine hunter or the machine master class is trash," and he came back and was like, I'm sorry, but this is a lot more. I was wrong about this, so I just feel like it's a lot more competent than what people give it credit
Yeah.
for.
Once you get the high level override, especially on the machines, it's insane, man. Because you can get, you know, huge like towering machines fighting each other, and you can have such epic face-offs, and yeah, it's some really fun shit in there. And definitely, I know what you mean because like the more you play and the more you kind of attune yourself, you basically turn into like a master hunter. Like the shit you pull off and how quickly you pull it off, and like compared to how janky you were doing it in the beginning of the game,
He's
it's
so
like
true.
it's two worlds apart. Like,
I
in
was
the
using the
beginning,
grappling hook like Sekiro, right?
exactly, yeah,
Like to get away from the enemies and all the things. I was just like I was fucking Spider-Man basically. I was trying
yeah,
to get
yeah,
away from this thing. That fucking bristleback was so relentless, man. Every time I would jump on one pole, and if you played Shadow of the Colossus, you remember that mission with the bull? Have you played that game before? I'm sure
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
have.
yeah. I completely,
You
yeah.
remember the one where you have to coax them into like smashing the pillars and it will fall
Oh yeah,
down?
yeah. I remember who you're talking
That's
about.
what
Yeah,
it felt like. I was
yeah, yeah,
going from one to the other, and he was breaking all of them, man. And it was just like the physics were going out. It's wild. I'm like, what the fuck? The emerging minute to
yeah.
minute battles are like really crazy. But
It's great. Yeah,
I'm
I mean, once you are competent with the controls and mechanics and everything, because in the beginning you're like, oh, pause, scan, but later you're like scanning and doing your crafting and scanning while you're running and you're diving and you're grappling onto this while you're doing other shit, and it's crazy. Once you know what you're doing, it's just a completely different flow to the combat, and I love that. To me, that shows the game has a good skill ceiling, right?
you,
If how you play in the beginning is how you play at the end, then it's not much of a skill gap. But if
right.
you're really changing and you look totally different and how you're doing things saving so much time, that to me is the sign of a good system that allows people with mastery and time to really get more out of it.
Now you know what I liked, and at first I didn't like this at all. I like going to a merchant or going to your stash and stocking up before you go out to battle. Like that was something that I didn't have to do in the original Horizon, but
Yeah,
it's
I do
like,
that too. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? I didn't need to because she was like a mobile fucking facility basically. But
yeah,
now
yeah,
because you can only hold but so much things, I'm like, okay, all right, do I need my healing portions? Do I want to eat this food so I just have that extra bit of health? Do I need these mods that allows me to get one shotted, but I have one piece of health and I can try to get away with my abilities? Uh, am I going into an area with fucking acid bristlebacks or whatever the case is, right? It was a lot to think about, and I would look at the map and I'm like, okay, so let me get these weapons. I didn't think to do that. I just was so against the grain when I first played it. It was so against the grain, and then now when I'm playing it again because I know how to kind of navigate it, and I don't know, but that was such a cool thing for me, and just being in the town and seeing people sneeze and drop their food and pick it up and little kids playing with their little toys, and it just, oh man, like this type of stuff that happens. I don't know if you ever been to like chain scrape, right? If you
yeah, yeah, yeah.
stay into the bar and chain scrape,
Yeah,
People start leaving the bar at like 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning.
yeah, it's crazy.
You
It's
know, I was
almost
like,
got
get the
Red
fuck.
Dead type vibes. Red Dead
Yeah,
2.
I was like, what the fuck, yo? They was like
Yeah,
going home. Like I was like, this is so
yeah.
fucking cool, man.
There's like
I was like,
drunkards and stuff who like kind of like Red Dead 2.
I was so geeking out. I was geeking out. But I want to ask you this though. So because I don't this ain't gonna be like a long fucking space like I did before. Like this usually 2 hours, so basically it's 45 minutes. Do you have Gran Turismo 7?
Yes, I do. I started
How
playing a couple of days ago.
what do you think about it? I gotta know.
See, shit, man, I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. And that's saying something because even though I did enjoy the last two Gran Turismos, they didn't blow me away. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so this one, I don't know, maybe it's the right time, or maybe this one feels like a return to form. And I know loads of people say that it's a bit cliche, but they say it because it does so many of the things that we missed in the old ones, and it adds so much new as well. Like it's a very passionate project. Like if you love cars, which I do, I'm like huge into cars and tuning and motor racing. I watch motor racing, I watch GT3, I watch Formula One. You know, all these things.
Oh,
So for
nice.
me, yeah. So for me, this is a love letter to automotive history and motorsports, and I love that. Like it's almost like it was made for me. It was like tailor made for me, this game. But that's not even going into the things that I think are so much better about it. Like the physics is much more
Oh
improved,
my
and I
gosh, it's so
yeah.
great.
Yeah, and I think so much of it is even because I use a wheel usually. I use
Holy shit,
T300
really?
RS. Yeah, but I haven't even you touched it. I haven't even been compelled to get it out because I find the dual sense so well implemented. I'm like, damn, you know what? I'm just gonna keep using this because I'm really enjoying. I'm really enjoying like how much feedback and nuance it gives, gear shifts, traction loss, different surfaces. Like it's got the whole shebang in there. Brake resistance, accelerate, throttle, kickback. Like it's all in there, and I'm like, damn, son, they went in hard, like every detail. And yeah, I'm really loving it. And I think like yeah, again, like that there's so much more depth to this gameplay and to the physics and stuff that maybe even some people have glossed over a little bit. And I can't wait for like the sim channels, the sim racing channels on YouTube to like kind of get stuck into it because I know they're going to love so many of the changes. Like now tire deformation and flex and all of that
Oh
is
my
real
god.
time calculated. So it's really deep, man.
I want to say this too, and I'm gonna let Reckon go, and then East Africa go as well on whatever you wanted to talk about before, because I didn't see your request. I will say this: the sound in this game, like it's, I mean, it ain't the best, but it's really fucking high quality. I'm not even talking about the 3D audio portion, but just like the engines. It's like weird to see that or hear that rather in the Gran Turismo game. But more importantly, um, the reason why sport failed, right? For me personally, if I go back to GT5, right? It was a lot of half baked ideas. I get why they did it because they had to convert those cars into like the next generation, and they just couldn't do it. These things are really hard to do. But you had a lot of PlayStation 2 cars, and then you had the fucking, you know what I'm saying? You had that. Some cars you can go and the interior and see the stuff. Other was blacked out, and most importantly, the fucking frame rate and the tearing was so bad in 5 and 6, man. It just took all of the air out of it. Then
Yeah,
when they
it was
made
terrible.
it was really bad. Then when they made six, or I'm sorry, sport, the thing that you would actually buy the Gran Turismo games for, which is the customization, it's not just customizing your vehicle. And I think that they failed to understand that. It's making it, it's yours. It's yours. Not everybody's going to put a turbo in there. Not everybody is going to drop their fucking chassis. Not everybody is going to reduce their weight. And it makes it your own fucking car. And they didn't have any of that sensation in sport. I bought it. I didn't like it. The thing that I like about the most of GT7 is the head wobble. I don't know why I like that. At first, I was like, "Is this glitching? What is this?" But as you're flying through the thing, you're going through the thing. Your head is wobbling, like they simulate that. It's fucking cool.
No,
Reckon, what you
you're
gotta say? What do you say?
No, I was going to say, no, you're absolutely right. And I think, like, so one of my complaints with the previous GTs, pretty much all of them actually, was the sense of speed isn't always that great because the feedback, there's not much rattle and vibration and head bobble or all that stuff. Whereas, like, something like Drive Club and even Forza, they do it a bit better. But I think this one is a really good balance because you do have all that bobble and wobble and vibrations and suspension going up and down, but it's not like exaggerated. It's like realistic to when you do real track racing. So I think they've really got a nice balance with all, and like you said, the bobble and stuff.
Yeah, Chef Kiss.
All right. Yeah, so I guess from my side, sorry, I had to go out a little bit because a little bit of Horizon Forbidden West spoilers started coming. I was like, oh, I'll jump back out and then jump back in. But in terms of GT7, I guess what I could say is, yesterday night I came from a concert and I had a little bit of time to play Horizon. And Horizon is my favorite game. Zero Dawn is absolutely one of my favorite games ever. Number one, because of the story. And for some reason, an unknown reason, GT7 pulled me in. And all I ended up doing is the driving tests, trying to get the gold and missing it by millisecond, and which is, I guess, a testament to how GT7 is going to perform the coming years. Because the thing is, the amount of stuff they put in this thing is just absolutely staggering again. And I think one way to really summarize Sony or PlayStation of what they're doing is the amount of detail they're putting into their products is just, like there's nothing that can even match it at the moment. I hope that some studios would be able to match it. Like, I think the only studio that maybe came close or kind of equals it is Rockstar with Red Dead Redemption. But
Right.
other than that, the amount of detail in Horizon Forbidden West, or the amount of detail they put in GT7, or even Spider-Man, even if you go and have a look at some of the stuff they put in Returnal, in terms of how the lore operates in the architecture, it is absolutely staggering with what they've been able to achieve. And all I can say from GT7's perspective is, I cannot wait for that PSVR 2 support. Like, that is going to breathe a new life into this thing, in the coming months that are going to occur. And also, I think that for Horizon, and don't quote me on this, but again, I usually follow a lot of developers, and Sunhai Legend, right?
Yeah.
The guy that does the amazing, video.
He got hired. He got hired at Guerrilla Games. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. He got, it's like lucky for him, and not
Right.
envious. But the main thing is that one of the developers commented. It said, and I probably am reading too much into it, but he said, then this is kind of like a quote. He said, "Sunhai Legend playing our single player." Right? So he's like specifies single player gameplay. Why and then I went, I actually DM'd him and said, you probably have to be a little bit careful if I'm reading this correctly. You're saying that there's a single player proportion to it. Are you saying there's a multiplayer proportion to it? And of course, he never responded back to me. But there is a chance that they saw what Sucker Punch did with the Legends mode, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, you're talking about Horizon, and they said single player portion. Yeah, but see, let me interject really quickly. They said when Horizon 1 was being developed, it was already going to be a co-op game, right?
Oh, it was. There was developer.
There was a video of it.
2 players.
There was a video of it, and then on top of it, as competent as Horizon is in terms of the mechanics, which I had to do a second playthrough to kind of get what's going on. It's the same thing with like you said, Ghost of Tsushima. I started noticing the systems were a little bit too deep. I was like, oh no, I see what this is going. I see what's going on, and this is the same situation. There's a lot of shit that's going on, and I feel like they're going to do a Monster Hunter type situation. I do, and it's going to breathe
Yeah.
life into it. But go on, continue.
And the only thing, the criticisms that I can levy towards Horizon Forbidden West, and this is coming from one of the number one fans in the world, is they could have done a little bit of in-depth, how to say, changes in the costumes. And I saw some nitpicking going around saying, oh, she looks horrible in the costumes. And I think one of the interesting things Ghost of Tsushima did with their, specifically with armor and costume, is when you upgrade it, the aesthetics changes. But I haven't come across any armor in Horizon where when you're going from level 1 to level 4, the aesthetic changes. The other thing is the introduction of the board game was just horrible. I think they could have done a little bit of better job with maybe a side quest or something like that. Other than that, I cannot levy anything at the moment. I've just reached the third area, hence the reason I kind of jumped up earlier. The thing that I would levy towards GT7, I played around 3 hours at the moment. I did lose internet connection, and I played a little bit with the music stuff, and received a lot, few trophies. And then when I logged in back today morning, what ended up happening is my trophies were not there. So not sure what happened. It's okay. No issues there. I did see the game crash on me once for some unknown reason. But this is the part and parcel of developing games during COVID, right? Testing is not that particularly easy at the moment. So other than that, the two experiences are absolutely wonderful. And these two products are going to have some leg. And the other thing, in relation to earlier, there was that discussion of Elden Ring. I am so happy for the From guys, because what this tells them is they are on a right trajectory. And hopefully we'll get Bloodborne 2 and many different these types of things to come in the future. So yeah.
East Africa. What you got to
Hey,
say?
what's going on, man? Thank
What's
you for
going on,
letting me
bro?
speak.
No problem.
There's about to be layers to what I'm about to say. So actually, first of all, how is PlayStation putting out this many masterpieces so quickly, just so consistently, bro? They don't. It's crazy. In Returnal, Ratchet and Clank, GT7, Horizon came out in less than a year, and Miles Morales came out a couple months before Returnal, which is crazy.
They're kicking ass in terms of because they had a lot of how can I put it, experience when they were getting their ass kicked in the PS3 area. They learned how to be efficient. They upped where their flaws was per studio, and they're very good at their craft. I want to say this before you let you continue. Even though the Gran Turismo series has had some rough spots, I noticed that the name is so powerful and the quality is undeniable that even if you do decide to shit on Gran Turismo, it doesn't make a fucking difference. It's like, you know what I mean? And I think that this is what Sony wants to do with all of their studios, like regardless of how you feel in Metacritic, eventually quality will prevail. And even though you could shit on a game, or try to evangelize a particular, game that you want. Like, I feel like once the dust clears and Horizon it gets revisited either by the multiplayer element or just people just revisiting it in general, I feel like it's gonna kick ass. But go on, please continue.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna say that. Like, I don't even have the linguistic capability to describe how good Horizon is. Like, a single enemy in that game, just like one of the tiny machines, has more pixels than like some entire games. Like People don't
like,
talk about this, bro, and how Gorilla is able
No.
to like put 40 or 50 different moving parts, detachable parts onto one machine that's tiny. And then on the bigger ones, I don't know. Somebody here didn't actually get to the end of the story, so I can't even say.
Yeah, you can't say it.
So I'm gonna just say a Thunderjaw. There's other machines that are just even crazier, but I'm gonna say Thunderjaw since it's from the first game.
Man, just there's so many different machines in there.
Exactly.
So and they're
Bro,
so
like
cool.
I can
you
say
know
this.
the
There's like
Slither
40
Fang.
different ones. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the Slither Fang was so advanced in its animation systems, right?
Exactly.
Even a God of War animation developer was like, "How did they do this?" Like,
Exactly.
you
I've
know,
But
never
you know
seen
what,
anything
Nibs?
animated like
You know
that.
what, Nibs? When they made what was that game? Days Gone, and people were talking about how did you make the bike work because the Unreal Engine can't do 2 wheels; it can only do 4.
yeah, I
So
remember that. Yeah,
yeah, the situation with the snake is that either you and collision is expensive in video games. So either each piece of that thing has collision or it moves like a full on entity. I was trying to pick apart too how they were doing it, and I was like, what the fuck? How did they
yeah,
do that shit?
yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
was
Because it's not
speaking about it.
it's mobile.
Yeah, I was speaking about Inner Spaces with some other developers actually who they did animation work, one for Arcane and I think one for, I can't remember the name of the studio, but they do AAA games. And even they were like, props to the Gorilla because some of the shit they do with the machines is unbelievable. Like, this thing is massive and it wriggles around like a real snake wraps around buildings and destroys them. And it's just insane. Like that
And the
stuff
hood as
when you
well.
play, yeah, it's crazy.
The animations in general are so far advanced. Like, how do you make an open world game have better animations by a decent amount than a linear game? Like, The Last of Us Part 2 had some of the best animations of all time, right? And then this game comes out and it tops that one. There's some times where I'm looking at them and my brain starts to get tricked as I'm looking at, like, as if I'm looking at a regular person. And like, I don't know if you guys felt that.
Exactly. Like
Like
seriously, it's
there was
uncanny.
this,
It's not even uncanny. It's just
it
good.
was weird. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say hit or miss, but not all the time is it like that. But there was a situation where a character was kind of explaining the story and their mouth kind of was like slightly agape. And before the other person finished the conversation, that person took like a swallow and then started talking, and you could see the person's throat. And at first, you just don't, so many nuances, you don't pay attention to it. I was like, wait the fucking minute. I'm not even watching people. I'm watching like
Or just
polygons
the
at this point.
fingers, how people move their hands and stuff. Just the individual fingers moving around, or 2 fingers, 3 fingers, like
There's
something I
that.
noticed.
There's that. And then Aloy was talking. And as she was talking, is this one cutscene. And one of these days, when I play the game again, I'm going to actually clip it and send it out on Twitter. She licked her lips before she started talking.
Damn.
And I
It's
was like,
crazy.
what? I was like, get the fuck out of here. And those little nuances, you forget that you're looking at a video game. And I'm like, and not only that, but you're looking at an open world game at that. It's like from fucking head to toe, this game has there's little things that you can work on. I feel like
You don't even talk about the water. Oh
well,
my
the
god.
water, some of the
Oh
water
my god.
can be worked on. Like I would
Exactly.
like
Yeah, and
I would like the Assassin's Creed ripples
yeah.
instead of the shader effects. The mesh actually moves. That's fine, but it needs to have more density
Yeah,
on
just
top of
the
the shaders.
transition between like going in water and coming out is kind of
Yeah, stuff
jarring.
like
But
that.
once you're
Like
in it,
yeah,
it's good.
once you're in it, once you're out of it, once you're swimming on top of it in that ocean, oh my god.
Real.
that ocean was out of control. Like they had like the what do you call it? The foam. It's not pre-canned. The game could like detect 2 polygon meshes or the
Yeah,
meshes colliding with each other and generate a parallax occlusion map of.
exactly. I was
I was
gonna
like,
say
what
the
the
the fact
fuck?
that the
Amazing.
foam, the fact that
Absolutely
the
amazing.
foam is parallax instead of textured is mad to me. Like these guys
It's
just they went too
it's
far.
it's not even just that it's just parallax. It's the fact that it's not preordained. Like it's in real time. If the
Yeah,
two
dynamic.
waves, yes, dynamic. If the 2 waves clash, it will generate this or any type of waves that clashes on anything, it will generate depending on what it is. I was like, get the fuck out of here with this game. And the cloud systems, they said when they first announced Horizon that the cloud system, first of all, it was dependent. And you can, there's a PDF of this shit too. They did like a whole GDC situation where the actual, they, not that it's real fucking temperature. We all know it's not real temperature, but depending on a biome would depend on how the clouds will actually form. One of the side effects or the limitations was that um, it's it doesn't update quick. So things like the hurricane that you see in the game, that shouldn't be possible with this particular setup. So somehow they were able to maintain everything that they had before and allow for it to have a higher resolution. Like it's stupid good. And lastly, did you guys know that they don't use the Havoc engine?
Yeah, they changed. They changed, didn't they? The physics system. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't use the Havoc engine. You know, and they said that because they don't use the Havoc engine, I guess there's a lot of bloat for it to be like basically a wider range of engines could use it. Since this is specialized physics, it fucking is more efficient. It doesn't eat that much resources, that many resources. The fact that you could walk through the grass and it stays flattened. I said, get the fuck out of here, man. Like it's so much shit. It makes it very hard to play other games. Let me
I'm saying, bro. I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's
it
exactly
makes it very hard.
feel.
Like, I mean, I get it. Elden Ring and any other game, they have their own charm to it, but fuck.
I was gonna say this into my second part of what I was gonna say is that
Yeah.
I feel like Gorilla doesn't get their props, bro. I feel like they're the
No.
most talented devs in the game, but in terms of like their creative design, I like FromSoft better. But in terms of just talent, Gorilla doesn't get, they don't get as rated as much as they should.
Gorilla hasn't gotten that much props since fucking PS2 or PS3 rather. When they made Killzone, as good as it looked, people still they just kept treating them as the redheaded stepchild. No pun intended, but that's what they ended up doing. You know what I mean? Like what Sony asked for Guerrilla Games of Guerrilla Games was much more than what they asked of Naughty Dog. When PS3 happened, right? And Sony asked them to make, like they had the, you know what I mean? What Sony asked them to do is make a more realistic character, right? That's what they asked them to do when they made Uncharted. They made it more realistic. And then they focused on a linear experience with set pieces. That's what they did.
Right.
When they asked Guerrilla Games, they said, yo, we need something that compete with Call of Duty and Halo. I'm going to need you to look better than them. I'm going to also need you to not only look better than them, but it to be performant. And I'm going to need for you to work on 3D for our TVs. And I'm going to need for you to, and I'm going to need for you to create a system for the waggle.
Now they made a whole new controller,
and they were like, oh, and co-op too. We need co-op too, by the way, with a competent multiplayer. Can you do that for me, please? Thanks. And they walked away. So it's like, then when it came to the PS4, they was like, hey, Guerrilla Games, sorry to bother you. Could you make the best looking game like of all time on like launch? By the way, make sure it's launch and make sure it's 60 frames a second. By the way,
and you have sure 2 multiplayer.
Keep in mind that Forbidden West is cross-gen, man. That's mind-blowing.
Bro.
Oh,
it doesn't make sense.
It
does not make sense.
I remember what they showed when they first released it. And you know what else they don't say about Forbidden West? The fucking... Because, let me go back to this. So Killzone was a launch game. It still looks fucking dummy good. It doesn't make sense, and no other developer gets like that type of strain. So anyway, going back to Forbidden West, you know what else doesn't get credit? Is the fucking sound effects and music. The soundtrack is one of the best soundtracks I've heard in years.
It's its own genre, bro. There's nothing like it.
That's why people probably ain't giving it no prize. I remember, I will never forget it. To this day, I'll be wanting, because the battle music is random between 3 different battles musics. One of them was in the State of Play trailer. when she was running away from the Velociraptor. That is my all-time favorite song. I still,
God, that shit gets you going in a fight.
yo, all them fucking Congos speaks to my African side, man. That shit.
It's like you're actually like a hunter. You're fighting actual animal.
Bro,
machine.
it's like
just like you're a savage. I know what you're saying, bro. It just gives you
it's
that feeling.
digital.
Like you're in
It's
the fight.
digital. It's digital because it's like the fucking, the fucking. It's a machine world. Then they have these Congos. They're playing.
But
They're
they have
going
the
crazy.
tribes too, and the
And then you have
savage
like,
element too.
and then you have like the fucking what's her name? The singer. I can't pronounce her name, and I fucking love her voice. And they
Zoe?
played it. No, the actual singer for the
Julia
theme
Elton?
song.
Julia.
Yeah.
The white
So
lady.
so it's a beautiful voice. And then on top of it, like they had like this really weird like flute in that fucking song, man. I remember when they first showed State of Play, right? And they did 5 hours of just the air. Not air, but like showing like the skyboxes and things at a distance. I was like, this shit looks so fucking cross-gen. I'm so disappointed. I mean, I'll play the game, but I'm so disappointed, right? So I still have it on my YouTube channel, my impressions. When I first sat down and saw it, they showed it and they showed her face. She was with the black guy. And she was asking, he was okay. I was like, okay, you got my attention, okay. And then she came outside and they showed the fucking I know what this name is, but for people that don't know, the fucking Velociraptor jaw almost fell off, right? All of a sudden, right, she engages in combat, and as she's pulling the fucking arrows back, the arrows, when they hit its target, it wiggles, right? So there's a lot of animations going on, right? Then you see the sand deform as she's rolling around, right? And that Velociraptor, when he yells at her to like disorient her, and she holds her ear, and then she throws a smoke bomb down, and that thing flips out, and she starts running. Oh man, she goes in there and she's running away from them, and they're literally trying to squeeze her in. They're hopping over water and they're hopping over all sorts of things. I was like, what the fuck is this? And as she's climbing up those little pillars, man, the thing is like, it's trying to find a way to get to her before she gets to her destination. And then she has to jump into the water, and all the while, the sound effects are powered by the fucking Tempest audio and 3D. I was like, get the fuck. And as they're playing this music, yo, and I'm just like, bro, like, I can't believe this. What's that meme on YouTube where the guy gets punched in his mouth and he was like, I can't believe you did this. Like, I was so numb. I was like, I can't believe.
You know, the crazy part is that some people don't see what we see. You know what I'm saying? They don't appreciate the quality. They don't think about the craftsmanship that went into it. It's like they don't really. They think of it as a surface level. You know?
It's disappointing. But I'm gonna go to GTA because we don't have too much long to go.
Definitely.
GTA. You know what I've always wanted, Nibs? Nib out of fucking Gran Turismo is the day and night cycles. I don't know why this is such a big fucking fetish of mine, but so far, the levels that I've actually unlocked, they all have fucking day and night cycles.
Yeah, I think they all have dynamic time of day. They just don't all have weather. They don't all have dynamic.
And I'm fine, and I'm cool with that because when I used to play Drive Club, I don't think people understand, like, when you can drive on a road and not have traffic, driving is some of the most therapeutic pastimes you can do. So as the gas prices rises and the traffic is more congested, I could just be in my fucking, look at me sound like a salesperson. Anyway, I could be in my house and just cruise and just see the fucking sunrise from midnight. That is so fucking mind-boggling to me. It's just something therapeutic about that where I'm just in my zone. I'm out of it.
That sounds therapeutic too.
You know, 1000%, man. It's such a good thing. Like, oftentimes I'll do the Nürburgring, right, and I'll set the time of day to like speed up. Sorry. So during the course of one lap, because it's quite a long lap, you know, like 8 to 9 minutes or whatever. During one lap, I'll literally watch the sun either rise or set all in one go, and I love doing that because it's just such a cool. The atmosphere, the skies, the pink hues is just really engaging. But yeah, the Gran Turismo, like yesterday, like I did 1 hour because usually you play these racing games like Forza and Need for Speed and even past Gran Turismo. You play these racing games and you kind of, and I don't want to sound like arrogant, but they're not very challenging. You kind of beast the AI. So I did this GR Group 3 race with my Toyota Supra, the pre-order one. It's like a GT3 race car.
Right.
And it's on hard, and I thought, oh, I'm sure it'll be fairly challenging, but it's probably not going to be too bad. I did it, and the first time it's like I think it was a 5-lap race. I did it, and I was like way in the middle of the pack, and I like didn't even get close to the front. I'm like, hold on a minute, what's going on here? Like, I can't be that bad. And then so I thought, let me do it again, and like slowly I was getting better and better and getting closer and closer to the front. But what I noticed was the AI was just it's a different level compared to previous Gran Turismo. Like
It
they
is.
are
I thought it was. I thought I was imagining it. I was like,
Dude,
not a
they
can
were.
be.
I felt like I was in an online race. I had two cars that were constant. We were constantly overtaking each other. 1 minute they'd go on the right side, they'd cut me in. Another would go in the
Hold on,
left.
Deborah.
Then I'd get in front of them, and at one point I was even sandwiched between two cars. And the AI collision, like fair play to them, we managed to go around like 2-3 corners basically side by side. I've never had that in a Gran Turismo. I was like, this is next level AI compared to what
And
it's not perfect because
no,
sometimes they do still ran you off the road. Like they get a bit aggressive sometimes, but like the quality of the maneuvers and how creative the AI is, and also like how well they're able to keep pace. It's just made for such a fun race, and it took me 1 hour to get first place in that race, and every single time I did it, I was getting a little bit better and a little bit better. But this AI was mad, man. Like if I overtake, usually you overtake and you get in the lead, and you're like, they're not going to catch you now. But this was not like that. One tiny slip up, or if I hit the curb too hard and my suspension, like I got a bit unbalanced, I lost a bit of speed. Boom, they'd be straight back at me attacking. I'm like, shit, boy, this is like fun as hell. But I love how challenging it is.
and it's the physics too. Just the okay. So I was driving as fast as I could, and I'm gonna let you talk, Reckon. I was driving as fast as I could, right? This is early game shit. You know what I'm saying? I go over this road that kind of was uneven in terms of like the way that it twists, and I landed wrong, and I could feel it, and I was able to correct it. And I remember the old Gran Turismo was like, once you fuck up, you're pretty much done. But I was able to because I could feel all the weight of the car, what to do next. I was like, oh shit. I'm like, the car is like, and I'm like, okay, I got it. I was like, all right, cool. And then it almost felt like the Matrix. I don't know if you ever watched the Matrix Revolution where Jada Pinkett was like, come on, move their big ass. So they had me with a slow ass fucking car. And I'm just trying my hardest to get third place. I was like, come on, I'm making this turn. I'm like, move your ass, please. So, oh gosh, man. It's something, man. It's fucking something. I can tell you that much. And
Yeah,
it wasn't stressful.
to that point, right? I think one of the things, because I was trying to figure out, like, hold on a minute, why do the physics feel a lot better? Like, I know, yeah, cliche, dual sense, blah blah blah, but what is it that the dual sense is doing that's actually communicating this better? Like, let me try and figure it out. And what I notice is like, basically, when you get like traction loss in one side of the car, because in all racing games, basically when you use a controller instead of a steering wheel, what happens is, say you're getting slip in one tire or one side of the car, right? You kind of almost hear it and see it before you can actually feel it. So you have to react to the visual cue from the TV, not the sensation. Whereas in a real car, you feel it first before you see it. You can feel the traction loss, the vibrations and stuff. Um, and I think with this, what the DualSense is doing, it kind of, when you're losing traction on one side or one wheel, a certain part of the controller mimics the
Yes, it
slip
does.
in the haptic.
Yes, it
Yeah,
does.
and it's like, yeah, and I'm like, damn. So it's basically pinpointing exactly what part of the car is slipping. So you're not really reacting to the sound or the visual, you're reacting to the feeling as well. And I think that really does make it much more compelling, the whole experience. Like, it's not just Like it's actually improving the gameplay. The
It's the
dual sense feedback is
it's the
improving the gameplay.
it's the feeling, it's the visuals, and it's the sounds. All of that was visual, or I'm sorry, all of that was sensory, like uh, information that I could use to actually correct the vehicle's oversteer or understeer. Because you can actually sometimes you can feel the still without the car going off control. You know those like red and white like humps on the side of the road that helps you slow down. Like you could
Mm,
feel if you go over on one side, you could feel it only on that side of the controller,
exactly. Yeah,
or
it's
vice versa.
crazy.
Which I was like, what the fuck? And the transmission as
Yeah,
it locks into gear, you're like, and you feel it in the
it's
controller. I was like,
crazy.
what the fuck is this game?
It's crazy.
Not only
Yeah,
that, but the physics is just way better. It's not if you turn all that shit off, it's just better.
it is, yeah. But you know, you're saying about the transmission, right? Driving a GT3 race car now feels completely different because the gear shifts are really aggressive sounding. The transmission, and you can feel that shit, and it's like, oh, like it feels so much more powerful. The car, like before, like it's just again just visual cues and audio, but now it feels faster as well. It feels more powerful. Like you really feel like you've got this mechanical freaking beast like under your. I do love that, honestly.
Just in general, that after I finish the statement, go ahead, Rick. But like, I will say this: now these cars feel like they're mine. I spent the money to get the muffler. I spent the money to get the exhaust, and to have this car unique to me and what I feel like my skill level is, and what will make it better or augment to my likeness. And you got to maintain the car. It's like, okay, shit is dirty. Let me clean it real quick, you know. Let me just maintain this here. I got to get an oil change. Those type of things is what makes Gran Turismo. Rec.
So I guess I can kind of combine the, the how to say the do sounds haptics that we are getting, and there was discussion of how amazing Horizon Forbidden West soundtrack was, and one of the interesting things I always notice, is specifically with Sony games, is like Ghost of Tsushima, right? It had an amazing soundtrack. Didn't got nominated. Didn't win.
That's terrible.
Last year, Returnal had, and I can guarantee you this, it had the best soundtrack in game, like in the past how many years. I'm not sure if it even got nominated. It got
I
nominated
don't
for
think it did
audio,
either.
yeah, and it didn't win. But at DICE, it won both. And one of the things I'll go to say specifically with how the haptics feels in GT7 is, at the end of the day, I think they're slowly but surely, I'm not sure if they've fully changed internally, but what Returnal used, rather than, how to say it, like impact haptic feedback, rather than using that, they switched it to sound haptic feedback. So
Yes, the
anything that
sound.
makes sound, will give you haptic feedback. And I think one of the interesting things, and I don't know this, the GT7 guys did probably, is all it is a tarmac and a rubber, right? And if you start losing traction control, there's a little bit of spinning, and vibration starts happening. And if they can mimic that particular vibrations or that frequency in the controller, and the haptic feedbacks can now do that, you are going to get,
The
different
feedback, that
types of
sensation.
frequency. Yeah, every single time for every different car. And one of the things I noticed yesterday is every single time I go a bump, it feels like a bump. It goes from front to back. Like,
Not only that, but it feels like that particular bump, not just a generic bump.
yeah,
It's a very
Exactly.
specific bump.
So you know the haptics in the DualSense, they
Mhm.
are basically like a
Speakers,
speaker.
they're speakers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they pretty much are like a speaker. And you can actually play music just from the haptics without any audio. So there's people when it first came out, they would plug it into their PC and they would play different tunes just on the vibration, and you could hear the music through the vibrations because the frequencies basically the it's like a micro vibrations would mimic the audio. But weirdly, and I'm trying to find it now so I can post it to the space. But there was actually an interview with the one of the lead designers of the DualSense. It was a Japanese interview, so it was translated. But one of the things that Sony did that was super cool, and that maybe not everyone realizes, is the DualSense functionality and feature set is actually built into their API and tools of the software development kit. So you can actually have a DualSense functionality just based on sound. So even if a developer doesn't have the time or whatever to manually adjust everything and particular features, they can have it so that it syncs to the sound profile, and it will actually automate DualSense haptics based on the sound profiles. So that is actually something Sony thought about, and it was their way of kind of ensuring DualSense doesn't become six-axis, that it's not just a gimmick, that it's kind of ubiquitous with all games. So yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, Reckon, because that is actually a technology and aspect of the tools that the DualSense has embedded. So yeah, and I definitely agree with you about kind of GT going with that sound-based profiling.
You want to know what else is? You want to know how to break the fucking the haptic feedback? Hold the mute button so it mutes everything. The sound will stop, which means that the sound profile is not fed to the attenuators.
Oh, okay, interesting.
That's how you know that it's straight sound. It's really sound based. So it kind of confirms or corroborates with that. So I remember I work from home, right? And I was actually it was a slow day, and my setup is in my bedroom. And I was actually, what was I playing? It was some game. I think it was probably Horizon. And I muted. I didn't want no sound or anything. I couldn't see my icon from a remote, so I muted everything, and I lost all vibrations. I was like, "What the fuck, man?" I was like, "Son of a bitch!" But it's just like the whole package of the PlayStation 5. And you're right, Reckon. It's unfortunate that I feel like it's because Sony is ahead of the game in terms of like popularity and just the quality that they're putting out there. And I feel like a lot of people want to see that shit fail. There's no reason why Ghost of Tsushima didn't win any kind of like best music. When I'll say this because we only have 3 minutes left. When you have the title, the card screen, the title card screen, and Ghost of Tsushima, and you run through that fucking field, and then all the birds come out as the music swells, instant fucking goosebumps. Instant goosebumps. Like I got cold. It was so much goosebumps. And the same thing with Horizon and that fucking.
Yeah, such a good opening, man.
I was
I
like,
love watching the YouTube cuts of people reacting to that.
Right. I don't know why I was looking for that. I was like,
Sick.
is it just
So good.
me? I was like, was it just me that
Definitely.
experienced this? It was just like weird. And the same thing with like what do you call it? Returnal. When you fought that boss that was playing the fucking keys, the organ. Oh my gosh, man! I was like, what the fuck? Like it wasn't like Goosebumps, a Goosebumps generator, but it was just so atmospheric, man. It was just so like
It's
I
just like,
forgot
how
where
is this possible, right?
I
You're just
forgot
thinking
where
like,
I
dang.
was. I was like, it was so immersive, I forgot. And the same thing, like what I said, that's my favorite track in Horizon Forbidden West. That the same song that they played. And the if you guys want to know what it is, just skip through the the state of play for the Forbidden West and go to where she was being chased by the fucking Velociraptors or the Claw Striders, and that whole music I need it. I don't know where I can find it, but I need it. I don't know why that song resonates with me so much. It's really cool. I like techno music. That's probably what it is. I like trance music and shit like that, and I also like orchestras and stuff, and it just hits all of those fucking things in like a perfect pitch, man. It doesn't make any fucking sense how good that is. But I feel like we've reached the end of what we were going to do today. I didn't want to keep it, but I feel like we definitely made a point here of mentioning like this is not to take away from Elden Ring. This is just to basically show how human nature is when it comes to hyping things. I feel like even though Elden Ring is going to do very well and has done very well, I feel like there's a lot of people that joined that game based off of hype and they don't know what the fuck Elden Ring, what they have in store for Elden Ring. And it's gonna throw them off. They were like, this shit, what the fuck is this? they're going to get destroyed. And they were like, if you thought Bloodborne was bad, man, like Bloodborne was bad though, but this one is weird because the mind wants to complete a situation. You know what I'm saying? So they're
Yeah,
going to run.
I actually feel that a wider demographic of consumer would prefer Horizon Forbidden West to Elden Ring. Honestly, um, I think like because of the challenge and the design and the kind of freeform nature, I think it would appeal to certain types of gamers and core enthusiast gamers. But I think Horizon Forbidden West, and this is one aspect maybe reviews don't necessarily indicate, but I think it has much broader appeal. And I think most of the general populace, if I was to say to my cousin, "Look, mate, play this game. Here's a copy," I think they'd be blown away. Honestly, like
They would.
they
They'll,
would.
they'll,
They would be like, "What the hell is this next gen shit?" They'd probably ring me the next day and be like, "What the hell?" Like, because technologically, animation, gameplay, the kind of scope and scale, and the kind of things you're taking on giant robot dinosaurs. I mean, how it isn't that cool? I really do think it. So it's not necessarily reflected in the score difference, but I think it actually has broader appeal. But marketing being marketing, Elden Ring is probably going to
yeah.
sell more.
Well, they're probably gonna be neck and neck at the end of the day. I think that because you can't go from 10 million to like fucking 30, and I feel like it's a very specific taste when it comes to Elden Ring. I feel like it's gonna be front loaded, and by the end of the day, they're gonna probably end up doing 15 million.
I
Obviously,
don't know, dude. I think this one's going to be mega.
no, it being 15 million is definitely mega. I think that, like I said before, I think what's going to happen because I think Red Dead did really well front loaded wise, and then eventually people started like once that high of the hype went down. I don't think it's anything bad. I just feel like the game specifically is just you have to have a certain taste, and that's fine. The game's going to whoop people's ass, and it's going to make people quit. They already have people bitching about accessibility as it stands now. But this is going to be definitely. I think it's probably going to hit 15 to 17 million. I think Horizon at the end of the day, because the first one did 20 million. At the very minimum, it'll do 20 million. And then we still got the PC release that's going to come out anyway as well. And then there's probably a multiplayer element on top of that that's going to reinvigorate the game itself and bring people into what the single player is in general.
I have one more question. Where does Forbidden West rank in your your top 5 games of all time? Is it up there now? Is it top 10, top 15?
I will say that there are. Let's just do the top 3 for the sake of time. My top game, my number one top game is Tomb Raider 1 for the PS1.
Okay.
I will never forget that game. The second one would be Shadow of the Colossus, and the third one would be Forbidden West.
Okay, 3. Okay.
That there will be my top 3, and let me tell you, they're all very close to each other in terms of where they rank, and like I like the original one because of the simplicity and that I didn't have to think and I could just fuck around with it. But this one is on. This is different. This one is different, not because it's
You
on a
got to
different
prepare
level.
for everything in this one.
That's what I was. That's what I was saying. Like in this one, before you go out to war, you got to go out there and go to the fucking merchants and stock up, and then go out, which was not present in the first game and stuff like that. And the fact that like you have armor situations where you can't just shoot with these wooden things. You got to take that armor off and get to the fucking white meat. And then fucking you can't just do what you you can't, you gotta like really strategize when it comes to that shit too. But like eventually I think quality nib will prevail. Like people will recognize the quality of this game, not now because of the hype and marketing, but eventually, especially when this dies down and people beat Elden Ring or whatever the case is, or whatever game that's coming out here, just like the other games, people are going to revisit this game and be
So
like,
to
this.
that point, that kind of actually happened with Forbidden West because, Zero Dawn. Because if you remember, it came out at the same time as Breath of the Wild, which caught a lot of the limelight and hype at the time. And I remember reading so many tweets and posts on forums and whatever, like, "Oh, I didn't play Zero Dawn because I was." I bought Breath of the Wild at the time or whatever, and I was hooked on that. And they revisited Zero Dawn, and they loved it. When they had they were looked at it with fresh eyes and a kind of different perspective or different expectation. And I think, yeah, you're probably right that will happen with Forbidden West, and not everyone, most people can't even get a PS5 right now as well. So it's going to be one of those that for a lot of people, they're going to have it in the back burner sort of thing as one to get. And I really do think it will blow a lot of people away. Yeah.
Yeah, unlike the first, this is the last thing I want to say. Unlike the first game, that was basically their first try at open world, and they kept it simple on purpose because they didn't want to do something and fuck up the whole game. They just was like, okay, yeah, you got ice, you can freeze them, it's brittle, you can blow things up. All right, cool. Story is pretty straightforward, and you got some side quests and a little bit here and a little bit there, and then you're done. You know what I mean? Like a nice little romp. You get a decent story and stuff like that. This is different. The amount of shit that they have going on with this game, like I said, and you said too, is completely competent. It stands up there with a lot of different games in terms of its combat system. And in the story, we're gonna have to talk about this on offline one day, Nib, like just separately, because the end has a lot of implications, man. And I have some theories, bro. I got some theories. And if they do what I think that they're going to do, oh Jesus Christ, man!
So Gamecast, I know a few other people like Gladiator and stuff. They and Gamer MD, they do want to discuss the story. So
we need to
maybe
all
we
go
could all do like a like a spoiler cast type discussion around it or something.
Absolutely. Let's set it up, man. Because bro, it's so many. When basically 90% of the story that was complete, I was like, are they really taking it here? Or is this for real? This is what they're gonna do? I was like, get the fuck out of
It's
here,
far
yo.
out. It's really far out now.
It's far out, man. Let me tell you, Rec, if you're still in here, man. Oh man, you got some.
I'm gonna go out. If you
I'm not going to say anything. I'm deliberately not saying anything. You got some bombs.
Oh, thank you.
You got some bombs. There's like 4 of them from where you're at now. There's 4 of them. That's how many bombs. It's just shattering. It's so good. But I'm gonna end it here. Guys. Thank you so much for being a part, Nibs. I don't know if I hit you up earlier to ask you. I don't know what I'll be doing, man. I'll be halfway asleep most of the time. What's that Pokemon again that be sleep all the time, drowsy?
Yeah, or Snorlax, one of the two.
No, I'll be drowsy. Like I'll be doing things, making moves, and don't even fucking know what I'll be doing. I'll be like, oh, did I do that shit? I must have been sleeping. But yo, what's going on, Thrash? What's going on, Jemiah? I'm going to play. Listen, I want to keep this shit short so I can play some Gran Turismo. Bro, they got me locked.
Same,
I tell
man.
you.
Same.
That shit fucked me all the way up. They don't make no sense. I was like, let me just get a little license real quick and I'll turn it off. Nope. 2 hours later, looking stupid. Looking real dumb, man. Like bro. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you being here. I really do appreciate it. Hey, listen, you guys think also Elden Ring I'm playing too. So I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna bring it to like what my friend was saying, take it as an adventure game and fuck around.